her. I told a lie, she got mad. She wasn't there when things got bad. I never ever saw the northern lights. Never really heard of butterflies. Never ever saw the stars so bright. In the farmhouse used to be alright, 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 alright. Woke this morning to the stinging lash. Every man has felt the ash. Each betrayal begins with trust. Every man returns to dust. Don't ever saw the northern lights. Never really heard of butterflies. Never ever saw the stars so bright. In the farmhouse to be alright, 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 alright. Hello, I hope everybody's having a nice day. Despite all of the terrible things that are going on in the world, I hope everybody's well. I was just over at Crime Lines and Lies listening about Alexei Treviso, and that case just blows my mind. Really does. But today, we're going to talk about beautiful Summer Moon Utah Wells, 7 years old, missing out of Hawkins County, Tennessee. She was only 5 years old when she went missing. All right, so there's been a lot of updates there. I mean, not a lot of updates. That's actually not even what I meant to say. There's been a lot of new content put out with Summer's name on it. There's the new age progression photo, which lots of different people are sharing, of course. And then Dawn and Candace's, I believe they're new statements, but it seems like it's a lot of old statements combined with maybe some new statements, but it's all the same information that we've heard before. It's just recycled information. It's things that don't always stay consistent, things that are said that aren't exactly what are always said. And the truth shouldn't change. There's only one truth. So that's a red flag to me. Pretty much anytime Dawn or Candace, Summer's parents, speak, it's usually a red flag to me because they're not wanting to talk about Summer because they know damn well that people are gonna AKA twist their words, as in people are going to call them out for all the inconsistencies and the things they've said that have changed over time that don't make sense, and for not being able to remember very specific details that would be very crucial in helping to find Summer that they just conveniently cannot seem to remember or don't know, because they're bad with time. And that alone is unacceptable in my opinion. And I feel that Dawn and Candace need to know that there are a lot of people out here that support you. And I don't know if it's because that's their way of making themselves feel better, for whatever reason, which doesn't make sense to me, but maybe they think that's their way of helping Summer by trying to be supportive to her parents and help them through a hard time. Because people think this must be the worst time of their life. They have a missing daughter, and they look past all the terrible things that they've said and done because their daughter's missing. Well, they're also suspects in their own daughter Summer's disappearance, and she's highly likely missing because of something they did. And that's my opinion. And I'm entitled to my opinion, and I'm allowed to talk about whatever I want on my channel. But I want people to know that I do not condone people calling in tips because of things they've heard on my channel or anybody else's channel for that matter, because anything that Don and Candace has said on here, I guarantee you the law knows about it. And if you really think you have a credible tip, maybe you should sit down and really think, is this information that's going to help the law enforcement working Summer's case in locating Summer? Because if it's not a credible tip. I mean, that's just how it is, because they do not want speculation from social media. They're making that very clear to be called in. Well, there's a reason for that, obviously. And it's not because they're too lazy to go through that many tips. It's because clearly they're already monitoring it and they already know, because Ronnie Lawson even came out and said that. Like, if it's something that you saw on YouTube, we already know about it. I mean, okay, I have to take their word on that. I'm not going to call in any tips based on anything that I hear on YouTube. Now, if Don or Candace comes out and says something, like some things that they've said to share, now I would have called some of that stuff in too, if it were me. But the thing is, that's her responsibility. And I'm pretty sure, actually, I know she did do that, when she should have. And um, they told her to keep talking to them as long as she could. As long as they're going to keep talking, keep them talking. And she did. She still is. So, I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that. Everybody goes about things their own way. But just keep in mind, she's already called this stuff in and they're clearly already watching and listening. And it's their job to investigate as thoroughly as they can. And they're very good at their jobs. And if that's what we're doing on here, is investigating Summer's case on our own, in our own time, because we want to know what happened to Summer and we want her to be found so badly that we're so invested in her case that we want to know every little detail. And when it goes to court, we're all going to be there for every step of it. And we don't even know if it'll be, it might turn out like a classic and Sincere's case. It might not be all broadcasted live for us all to see, and I highly doubt it will be, honestly. But all right, I'm gonna go into my notes. So this is from TBI Newsroom, latest update. Amber Alert, Summer Wells, updated 6/14/23. On June 15th, 2021, Summer Wells disappeared. Now, this is the first update we've had since, I believe, November 2022. And it really wasn't an update. It was just basically them telling us and letting us know that they're still working on her case. And it's not a cold case. Same old. I appreciate them saying that rather than just saying nothing at all. At least, I mean, at least they come out and they're like, look, we're still doing it. We're still working on it. We're still doing Summer's case. Please just have faith in us. We're not going to stop until she's found. And we don't have any information that we can share. All right, well, that tells me that they have information, that they're on to something. Please just be patient and have faith in them. That's how I take it, because I have a lot of hope and faith and, in law enforcement, that they will definitely be able to figure this out and not be outsmarted by whoever has done this. And it's not necessarily just a matter of being outsmarted. That land is so vast and deep. There's so much depth to it. It's not like it's flat lands out there where it'd be a lot easier to search. No, this is so different. Um, yeah, it's a whole nother world out there. So on June 15th, 2021, Summer Wells disappeared, leading to one of the most exhaustive and involved missing child cases we've ever investigated. Though we have no new details to share, which doesn't mean there are no new details, it means they have nothing to share with the public. But rest assured, we're continuing to work with the FBI and the Hawkins County Sheriff's Office to chase every lead, ask every question, and search every place we can to find Summer. We won't stop until we have answers. Are there still searches being done that we don't know about? That would probably be smart if they did searches without telling anybody, because then nobody would know where they were searching unless they saw themselves, that, if somebody saw themselves that there were searchers out and they knew what those searchers were there for and what they were doing, then they would know they were searching for Summer and where they were. But by not announcing it, I mean, it's not very likely that people are going to find out about it, because I'm sure they have their ways of being discreet. Last I heard, they were doing searches with leads that were coming in, that were leading them to search certain areas. And on the frequently asked questions sheet that they just handed out, for June 15th, the question of if they're still searching, they talk like they're still searching, and they say they're still doing searches based on tips that are getting called in, potential leads they're searching for. So, and there were also planned searches and, targeting specific areas too. And they've done dozens of other searches as well, smaller ones. They did 3 large searches. So, all right. Summer remains the subject of an ongoing Amber Alert. Thanks to forensic artists with the NCMEC, National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, we have an age progression image that shows what Summer may look like today. All right. Now, I've spent a lot of time staring at this image, and I will say, the more I look at it, it kind of does look like Summer, like in the eyes and in the nose, probably looks like her. The mouth looks weird to me, obviously. I mean, we're not used to seeing her with adult teeth, and it's something about that part looks a little off to me. I think maybe her cheeks look a little too full, but I don't know. She looks a lot like her oldest brother, and she's very beautiful regardless, even though it's not actually her. It's just really sad to think about, This has been 2 years now, and this is the reason why we're looking at this, and it's not even really her. Sad. So TBI says, we ask the public to help us by refraining from sharing speculation posted by or discussed by non-official sources and reporting only credible tips to information to 1-800-TBI-FIND. Now, I have a lot of respect for the TBI, but they cannot expect people to stop talking about summer on the internet. There are a lot of people calling in tips because of rumors on here. That's the real problem, and that should be addressed. People need to stop calling in tips that are based on what you think happened. That's not going to be helpful for anybody working Summer's case because, trust me, I guarantee you they've already thought about it. And if it's on here, they've probably already heard it and everything, and looked into it even. You know, they are checking into tips from YouTube that, and people know that, and they're taking advantage of that, and it's bogging them down. It's interfering with the investigation by slowing them down and overloading them with work. In my opinion, the main suspects are Don, Candace, and Grandma, Candy Harer, and anyone else that could have possibly been around Summer that day on June 15th, or even in the days leading up to June 15th. They could be looking at a lot more people than we might even realize. And it's just my opinion that Don, Candace, and Grandma are the main suspects. We know that Don and Candace and Grandma, we know they haven't told us everything. There's too much time left out. There's too many things that have changed, and it just doesn't add up. They themselves are giving people reasons to create rumors and speculation that tips being called in are based on. Don and Candace are causing, and Grandma for that matter, if that was really her, are causing interference in Summer's case. I stand with Summer Moon Utah Wells. She is the victim. Now that's pretty sad, especially considering they're also simultaneously turning down all this help or just not utilizing existing help, like the NCMEC, for example, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They have plenty of resources. The Cold Case Foundation, which Michael Vaughn's mother, Brandy Neal, is utilizing for her missing son. And she has told Don herself they're very helpful and resourceful and that Summer deserves the help. But Don basically dismissed her. Excuse me. Michael Joseph Vaughn, also known as Monkey by his family and now the world that loves and adores him, he went missing July 27th, 2021 from Fruitland, Idaho, and he still has not been found, unfortunately. Please, if you're not familiar with Michael Vaughn's case, see my videos on him to start off with and research for yourself, because there is information out there on his case to where you can inform yourself. There's press conferences and news articles. And if you are a creator on YouTube, I would encourage you to share his information out. And then in Summer's case, there's also mainstream media being turned down, like Fox News allegedly, and who knows what else. They have a media manager protecting them against things like that, Tim Mullen, protecting Don and Candace from having to answer to the media, to the public, to anyone on the internet that he has any control over by blocking comments and trying to make Don appear so holy and broken up over Summer, when Don makes his own self appear just exactly the opposite of that. And they can't even seem to get right when they met. So if Tim thinks they met at a prayer vigil. And Don's saying they met before that. Then when did they really meet? Because I think that's awfully strange that Don would make up a story about Tim being on his property flying a gyrocopter and saying this is free airspace. Okay. Why were you on his property? You know what I'm saying? Like, why was he there if they had never met? It's kind of strange. And I feel like Tim doesn't want to have to answer that question. So that's why he said he met Don at the prayer vigil, right? And he met Candace at the Fun Fest parade. I don't know if he actually met her, but he saw her there. Or am I getting that backwards? Anyways. Also, Tim is trying to lead people to call tips in to the PIs instead of the TBI or Hawkins County Sheriff. And that just blows my mind. People that may be too scared to call the authorities themselves, he tells them, just call them into the PIs and it'll go to the PI company and someone will decide if it's credible or not. What the hell? Then, yeah, that's just weird to me. That should only be up to TBI, FBI, Hawkins County Sheriff that are working Summer's case, what tips are credible or not. But Don keeps Tim around. Candace has made it very clear that she does not want Tim around, but here he still is. There the red truck still is too on findsummerwells.com that doesn't even match the description given by law enforcement, nor does it depict what the truck even had in its bed. The red truck allegedly had white buckets in the truck bed, which leads a lot of people to believe that could have likely been Don borrowing a truck from his work drywalling or getting a ride from someone he works with, or it being someone Don works with driving their own vehicle or that he works for. Tim depicts a truck with wood on top. There are no buckets in the back. This is a bright red paint where LE clearly stated red or maroon. He gave it Euro tail lights, which in my opinion makes it look nicer and newer and more well kept. And the actual red truck was probably old and dirty, and it was a late 90s to early 2000s model, and Tim depicts something much more modern looking. It's on purpose in my opinion, because how could it not be? At least by now. I know he hears the things that people say when they say it enough on here, and if he doesn't take that down off findsummerwells.com soon, then I'll be convinced that he's doing it on purpose. Why would he want a red truck on there that is the wrong one? Why? So, was Tim Mullen the one that told Robin that the authorities were no longer looking for the driver of the red truck? Does anybody know that? Does anyone know who told Robin to cross off the red truck? Or maybe they didn't tell her to cross off the red truck, but somebody told Robin that the red truck was found and they weren't looking for it anymore. Was that Tim? Does anybody know that? I don't want to talk about this because I think a lot of people are going to think the TBI doesn't want us talking about Summer at all on here. But I think the point people need to get is to not be calling in tips unless they're actually credible. And if you aren't sure, like I said, find someone you really trust and discuss that with them and really think about it before you pick up the phone or walk into the sheriff's office. Because if you don't know for sure if it's information that could lead to locating Summer, it probably isn't. And they're getting a whole bunch of that. And they're actually having to go out and check up on most of these things, unless it's something they've already heard about and already checked into, which I'm sure a lot of it probably is. But it still takes that much more time away from Summer by having to call, to even take the calls at all and log it all in. So please just be responsible. Summer needs people to share her picture. She needs people to talk about her, say her name, tell people about her, not people bothering those that are actually in charge of her case. They have way more information than we do. They don't need to watch a YouTube video to figure anything out that we already know on here. They already know it, plus some. And no offense to psychics at all. But they aren't willing to work with psychics. So, I mean, they don't really want that either. Um, but they already have pieces of the puzzle that they're putting together. It's just a matter of being able to put it all together. You know what I'm saying? I had to get a drink, sorry. All right. So, yeah, it's just a matter of being able to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. Um, we have like 5 pieces of like a several hundred piece puzzle that the law likely already has probably like halfway put together. They aren't going to find what they need on here. If someone knows where Summer is, it's not because of something they heard on YouTube, it's because of something they know in real life. If there's something that someone knows about where Summer is or what happened to her because of social media, and they have to call it in to TBI or Hawkins County, they probably heard it from her parents or her grandma and thought because of what they heard, they just fit all the pieces together. When really, whatever Don, Candace, or grandma said was probably a lie, and law enforcement probably already knows about it, whether it's true or not. That's just my opinion, if you're following what I'm saying. All right. Trying to skip through to. All right, this is from NewsNation. Okay. Summer Wells, Tennessee girl still missing 2 years later. She vanished from her Tennessee home on June 15th, 2021. Her family believes she may have been abducted, taken down a hill behind her home. Her parents' past polygraph tests were previously center of investigation. Now, hold up, News Nation. Is this information given to you guys by Dawn? Were they cleared at some point and I missed that? Because I'm sure I would know if that was the case. And you're making it kind of sound like they were, and that's kind of weird. So I'm wondering if Dawn gave you the information saying that they're not any longer the center of the investigation, because I don't think that's true. I think they're still suspects. Anyways, all right, on June 15th, 2021, Summer's parents said she was helping her mother and her grandmother plant flowers before going inside their Rogersville home to play with their toys. So, plant flowers, going in to play with her toys. What about cacti and going in because she wanted to see her brothers? There wasn't a flower bed. They weren't planting flowers. We all know this. So, then out of nowhere, Summer vanished. That was the last time her mother said she had seen Summer. So did Summer go inside to play with her toys, or did she go inside to play with her brothers? Because Grandma says she went in to play with her brothers. And Candace also says brothers at one point. And she also says toys. And now here, both of them are saying she went in to play with her toys. So what was it? It sounds like a small difference in words, planting flowers when it's actually cacti, and saying she wanted to go in and be with her brothers versus going in to play with her toys. But it actually is a big deal because it's a lot of little details like this that are constantly getting switched. And Candace is so matter of fact about it when she tells us things, but she doesn't always say it the same. And then she gets upset when someone calls her out on it. So, yeah, that's a red flag. Why isn't it always exactly the same? You know what I'm saying? The truth doesn't change. So it must not be true. I think the planting flowers and everything else was all made up. And Summer's brothers could have seen her walking away from her home at any point in time on June 15th, 2021, probably in the early afternoon, as in 3 p.m. or earlier, because that's when she was last seen per law enforcement. Candace says, I yelled downstairs for her a couple of times and didn't get an answer, which was unusual because usually she always answers me. So I went down there to check and she was nowhere in sight. She was just gone. So that's when you last saw her, but you waited, what, 3 hours to call 911, 3.5 hours? Because law enforcement's saying that she was last seen in the early afternoon on June 15th, and that she was wearing a pink short shirt and gray pants and was believed to be barefoot. Okay. And one of her brothers, or maybe two or all of her brothers, saw her walking away from her home. Wonder which direction she was headed. Probably down the driveway because that's where her scent was followed to the road. Interesting. So why did the 911 call happen around 6:30 then? Candace says, hold on, I just lost my spot, sorry. Her family believes Summer may have been abducted, taken down a steep hill behind the home, possibly to a waiting car along the road. I know in my heart and in my mind that she was abducted. Don Wells, Summer's father, told NewsNation. Someone snuck up there and we were not exactly paying attention. We don't know if they came in the basement and grabbed her or if she stepped outside the basement and was walking to her swing or something. Like Candace says, Summer would never walk off her yard by her swing. That's where she always loved to be, though. We see how much Summer loved her swing. Maybe she has walked off the yard by her swing. Maybe she spent so much time by her swing that Don and Candace just always assumed she was out on her swing whenever she wasn't in the house. But maybe this time she wasn't. And that's where they thought she was till they went and looked and realized she wasn't there. Then maybe they found her somewhere and they had to hide her because they didn't want to get in trouble and go to prison. I mean, that's what goes through my head. I'm not going to lie, but there's also a few other things that are always going through my head too. And right now, I'm not going to talk about that. Don has said time and time again, he always knew something was going to happen to Summer, and he thinks Summer knew something was going to happen to her too. As in what? Happened to her as in lose her life? That's bone chilling to hear Don say that about Summer. It's very strange. It doesn't make sense why he would think that. If everything was truly as good and normal as he says it was in their life, then why would he think that? You know, this is just a random thought that popped into my head, but I wonder if the case, their CPS case ended with the boys, but not with Summer. Maybe hers was still going, and that's why he was so upset that day at work or something. Who knows? And also, I want to know why Don says we, because, hello, he says he was at work, so why would he say we weren't exactly paying attention? And don't say it's because they use I and we interchangeably, because that does not make it and make any more sense. That makes it even worse if you put it that way. Almost immediately, Candace and Don became the center of an investigation, but were never named as suspects, although they kind of were. They just didn't specifically say their names. Just like they didn't specifically say they weren't cooperating, they just said they weren't going to classify cooperation at this point. Police remained tight-lipped about Summer's case, and there haven't been any real leads or developments that we know of. So, the Wells said they have had to move from their tight-knit community of fewer than 5,000 people because of all the threats and harassment they received. So this wasn't a move for work, because they made it sound like they moved for work. They made it sound like they didn't want to leave their home where Summer last lived when she went missing. And for all they allegedly know, Summer could walk back up or be dropped off anytime. So why leave? Whatever happened to Candace saying, I can't leave in case she ever walks back up? The hate was that bad that it drove them out. They chose themselves over Summer yet again. Great. And going against their word, and then lying to the media about why they moved and trying to get sympathy, thinking if they make themselves appear as innocent as possible, then maybe they will actually be seen as innocent. And maybe law enforcement won't be able to find any evidence, which Don seems to think they have none and that they haven't found any, and they never will. And they'll never have to own up to their crimes against Summer. And that's all my thoughts and my opinion. The Hawkins County Sheriff said the Wells have cooperated, but there is no evidence that Summer was kidnapped or abducted. TBI says they're not going to classify cooperation at this time. Just because someone is being cooperative on and off doesn't mean they're innocent. And it's funny how this is worded like they're cooperating to a point. That's how I take it. Why not fully cooperate? Where is Summer Wells? Timeline of the search for 5-year-old, now 7-year-old Summer Wells. We have not ruled anything out. Everything is possible, Ronnie Lawson said. This is where I perhaps lose a bit of hope, but not much, because this doesn't really mean anything. It just means that they don't have definitive proof of one thing or another, so they can't say for sure one way or another what has happened. So they're leaving all possibilities on the table because that's the smart and logical thing to do, because they don't know for sure. That doesn't mean they're not leaning in a certain direction or have some evidence which leads them to believe they know what may have happened. That means they don't have proof of anything to lead them in one direction specifically yet, but it doesn't mean they haven't thought of one. Does that make sense? It doesn't mean they have nothing. It doesn't mean they're not building a direction to go in. It just means they haven't gone down that specific path yet. And maybe by now they have, because they're not sharing that information publicly. Both Don and Candace passed a polygraph test, but Lawson's statement that everyone is still a person of interest is leading some to wonder if the Wells may know more than they've said. Well, Lawson is saying all options are on the table, but everyone is still a suspect, and we know what he means by everyone. They're not going to name the people or persons specifically by name, because they probably know they're watching and listening very closely to every little thing being said, and they're out here controlling narratives and causing certain tips to be called in and misinformation. And they don't, the TBI, they don't want to shoot themselves in the foot, so to speak. And they also aren't going to put their foot in their mouth either, because in my opinion, they know there may be a lot more to it than meets the eye, even for them, even, with whatever they have. She is a good mother. She loves her children, Don said about Candace. She is not going to allow any situation like that. The biggest mistake she might have made is choosing some wrong friends. Allow any situation like what, Don? Something bad to happen to Summer? Like creating the perfect opportunity for something bad to happen to her on June 15th, 2021? Because you want everyone to believe that a stranger came up there when she just wasn't paying attention for just a minute and snatched her up. But Candace allowed all that. I mean, do I really believe that it was only 2 minutes? Do I really believe that there wasn't something that could have possibly happened to cause Summer to go missing due to some type of neglect from Candace? Because I do kind of feel that way. So it's hard for me to have much sympathy for you guys. By everything I've seen over the past 2 years, that just blows my mind because it's just so abnormal and unnatural. Some of the things that have come out of your mouths as parents of this beautiful, innocent, missing child, Summer. I believe you're too desperate to want us to think that Candace would never do something like that. And that your narrative sounds too rushed and there's too many blank spaces in your timeline. There's too many things that don't add up, that don't make sense. There can only be one truth, as I've said a million times. Were Candace's wrong friends, people like Marlena, Jose, Allie, her family, the randoms she would pick up from the gas station, what did they do to be so wrong? And why did you allow them around your children and in your home if there was something so wrong with them that they weren't the right friends for Candace? What made them not right to you? When asked if any of those wrong friends have anything to do with Summer's disappearance, Don said, "We don't know." And in my opinion, they do know. Either they know they didn't because they're guilty, or they know they did because they're guilty, in my opinion, or because they have guilty knowledge, or they did something to cause it. That's just how I feel. I'm just saying that's how I feel because of things that I've witnessed and things that I've observed. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, and anybody's welcome to say how they feel. I'm not going to judge you for how you feel, and you're more than welcome to say how you feel. This is how I feel, though. Okay, Don says he was limited in what he could discuss about the family and the case. Social services took Summer's three brothers from the home shortly after Summer's disappearance, and the Wells have not been able to communicate with them in half a year. Have not been able to. Why? Because they ruined that for themselves? Because they didn't follow their case plan or the rules in place thereafter? Were they calling intoxicated and trying to talk to their sons? And what kind of things were they talking to them about anyways? Because you have to follow those rules too. Maybe the boys are better off not communicating with Don or Candace anymore. And maybe that's why they don't. And I really don't want to talk about them too much. We love our daughter with all our hearts, Don Wells said. We miss her. We will do anything to have her back in that church with us. She so loves. Wow, just wow, Don. You are such a narcissist, in my opinion. Don thinks he can use church to hide behind. He's trying so hard to make himself look like a good dad that it makes me wonder if he ever was at all. Like, I know he has kids and they lived with him, but was he a dad to them? Because I'm made to believe that Don didn't act like a dad to his kids because he says things like this to validate himself as a father, which is scary because why would you really have to do that unless you literally weren't a good father and you know it and you don't even know how to pretend to be a good dad? You're being so extra that it's hard to take seriously. It's a very serious matter. Summer is a very young child that has been missing for 2 years now, and her parents seem to just want the whole mess to just go away rather than trying to deal with it head on and find answers for their daughter, Summer. They turned down all the help they're offered, basically, and when given chances to talk about Summer with hundreds, if not thousands of people watching or to be viewing, they don't talk about Summer. We get a few faint details about Summer over 2 whole years that have changed that we don't even know are true. And it's sad. Like, Summer wasn't 4, she was 5. She was probably 4 feet tall, not 3 feet tall, and they can't get straight what she even ate that day. They don't even seem to be totally sure what she was even wearing. So if all those details from the very get-go were all wrong, then how can we trust anything she tells us? Would she know Summer's favorite color and cartoon and her favorite book if she doesn't even know how old she is or when her birthday is? Would she know Summer's favorite food if she just always let Summer get whatever she wanted whenever she wanted? Would she really know Summer at all? Maybe that's why they don't talk about her. because they didn't really know her that well. I really question that. I just think Candace was too concerned about getting intoxicated and getting attention from Don or whatever guy she was talking to whenever Don was not around. And I think she was so engulfed in her own feelings and wants and needs for herself and feeling good herself that she was neglecting the wants and needs of her children. And I think it shows pretty clearly, but I could be misreading things. It's just how I see it. It doesn't mean I'm right. It's just my opinion. Summer's father pled guilty to driving under the influence in 2022. Candace also filed an order of protection against him, but then asked for it to be dismissed. We all know about that. Candace and Grandma claiming they're afraid of Don, and Candace claiming she's even afraid for her own children, which includes Summer, because she's afraid Don is going to hurt them. That's within a year of Summer going missing. If that's not a huge red flag, I don't know what is. I have always had so many doubts about Don, and I have never bought his act, Candace either, for that matter, or Grandma's. But I always come back to thinking Don is guiltier than sin of many things, including guilty knowledge in Summer's disappearance. I think Don tries so hard to come across as the loving and hardworking caretaker of his family, the father that got clean and turned his life around and found God again. But that's obviously not real. I don't think so. I think it's all a facade and literally has some people hook, line, and sinker, but not me. I've never bought it. Ever since the first interview he did with Josie on the news, and I thought Don seemed so nervous and uncomfortable, and he said things that were really off-putting in that interview that raised my eyebrows. He says they beat their brains out looking for Summer, and I cannot get that out of my head. Don says a lot of things that I don't even think he realizes how bad it sounds when he says it because he's so used to talking like that normally. Like seeing Summer in the resurrection directly after her disappearance. Even Fred Hill says Don came up there talking about religion and talking like Summer was past the day she disappeared. Why? How close were him and Fred? I mean, is anything Fred told us true? I mean, maybe he was the one selling them drugs, for all we know. And he just fed us a bunch of crap because he was trying to make himself out to be a certain way that he wasn't. Who knows? But why give up hope so very soon? I can understand being depressed and losing hope, but right away when she could be out in the woods somewhere, still for you all to, like, for all you know, for you all to find, she could just be out there in the woods, like, trying to find her way back home. And you're already just saying, oh, I'm going to see her in the resurrection. Like, that just doesn't make sense. Don currently faces criminal charges in 3 states, including a domestic assault arrest in 2020. Does anyone know what 3 states? Is that Utah, Tennessee, and Arkansas? Or is it Texas? Or where? What's the 3 states? You know, everybody makes mistakes, Don said. He sat down with NewsNation to discuss where Summer's case stands today. I don't know about anyone else, but I like NewsNation and I like the way they report their news and keep up on their stories, but I wish they would have done a little bit more with Summer's case. And sometimes the way they word things really bothers me, but I appreciate that they did this. So we're doing better, he said. It's still very rough for my wife. Don, why is it still very rough for Candace, but why isn't it still so rough for you? Is that your way of making it seem like Candace is the one that knows something or did something, and that's why it's so hard for her? A way of throwing shade at her? Or is this a way of trying to make Candace look so brokenhearted to try to make her look innocent? It's really hard to tell with you, but I don't believe that. I don't believe he's saying exactly what he means ever. I think Candace is less brokenhearted than half the people on YouTube that love Summer that have never even met her. And that's just how it appears and how it seems based on the way Candace so casually talks about the things that potentially could have happened to Summer, and so does Don. The way Candace doesn't stick up for Summer or Don or put people in their place for things that are so awful that they say about Summer. She just cares about what people are saying about her. And Don. Candace gets more mad when she hears people talk negatively about Grandma, Candy Hair, than she does about things that people say nasty about Summer. That's kind of backwards, right? So the article continues. Candace hasn't sat down for an interview since an appearance on Dr. Phil in 2021, where she walked out of an interview in tears. Now, those tears were for herself, not for Summer, in my opinion. During the 2021 interview, she said she felt she was being interrogated again and didn't want to do the interview further. She only cared that it wasn't helping her. She didn't care that it could, however, be helping Summer. Since Summer's disappearance, Dawn said that their life has been consumed by harassment from people online who believe they are responsible for whatever happened to Summer. I really don't know what they expect when they have done so little to help in their own daughter's missing persons case. I think they would look a lot less guilty and get a lot less hate and harassment if there was a clear answer from Candace what was going on between 3 and 6 p.m. on June 15th. What she told Chris McDonough doesn't even make sense, and she doesn't want to clarify on it. She doesn't want to sit down and work it out and go over it with anyone, even at the advice of law enforcement that she needs to. Then Don is there behind Candace, backing up everything she says, saying he was at work. Then also saying things like, we weren't exactly paying attention when Summer went missing, and we think an abductor came up the back hill and took Summer. There's more than one example of that. I believe he was on Cher's channel, or I just remember Cher bringing it up before about Don. One time he said we about who was home, and he's done that more than once. So he says a lot of things that just really blow my mind. So, okay, I'm skipping ahead a little bit here. Before you know it, you're getting a mob going, Don said. My wife could go to the store and somebody would scream at her, like baby killer or whatever. There's a little, that's a little over the top and something I would personally never do, but I don't really feel that bad for Candace because I think there are a lot of ways Summer being missing could have been prevented by her mother, and I think it's a possibility that Summer could have even been unalived at the hands of her mother, whether it was due to neglect or something more sinister, or due to her wrong friends, or due to drugs or something else. But I would never yell baby killer at her because I don't have any proof of anything. Until I hear it from law, I would never do that. Now, if I found something like that did happen, then I would probably pat someone on the back for yelling that at her. So Don sent NewsNation videos from one of his job sites where some people were demanding to speak with him about his missing daughter, Summer. He said it got so bad that he had to leave the state. So I want to know, did Don and Candace leave Tennessee for Arkansas for work like they said they did, or no? Because they have led us all to believe that they left for work. They're even like living out of a hotel as if they're going to be coming back at some point, like it was some temporary thing. It seemed like at first, and then they're just like, nope, we're going to stay. I figured they would have found somewhere by now. That's really expensive to live out of a hotel like that unless you're working for them, so, for your rent. I'm really beside myself with this one because Don and Candace had to leave Summer's home, the entire state, not just the hill, because people were demanding that they give the answers they still have yet to give. Why not just give the answers? You're so afraid of people twisting your words that you will up and leave the entire state permanently just to escape answering questions that still need to be answered about Summer so that we can help to find her. And you would rather just leave? You're the only one twisting your own words. You care more about protecting yourselves from having to answer to the truth about Summer than staying home in Tennessee, where Summer likely is and could come home to at any moment for all you know, right? Unless you do know more. Where all the memories are with Summer, and you're just going to throw that all away because you don't want to answer to anything. Well, that says a hell of a lot about you to me. Really think about it. Now the two live in a motel in Arkansas where Don was able to find a new job. Exactly. That's why they moved, I thought. But apparently they moved to escape to have to answer anything about Summer. Even though they're still online, where people are still hounding them with the same questions, and where you live has no bearing on that. As for Summer's case, her father said they have a private investigator working with the police. Now, I've never liked this since I first heard it. I would sure hope law enforcement would be smart enough to tell the PIs nothing if they really are working together. Hawkins County is still working alongside TBI, but both agencies declined interviews. Ronnie Lawson says a statement will be coming soon, but we don't know when that will be released, and we don't know that there will be any information contained within his statement that we haven't already heard time and time again. With Dudley Ajan's recent warrant and wanted status, and with Fred Hills just getting arrested for manufacturing and all that, maintaining a dwelling, people are thinking maybe things are starting to come together and people are starting to go down one by one. I don't personally think that's what's happening. I think this is just it was just bound to happen. I don't think it's tied into Summer's case, but that's just my opinion. I don't know. I could be wrong. Don said he hasn't learned anything new from law enforcement either, but he always said he believes Summer was abducted. So nothing pointing to abduction, nothing pointing to foul play, other than her walking outside the house and not being found. Lawson had previously stated. So does that mean foul play? So Summer walking outside of her home and not being found points to foul play because her parents don't have anything to say about that. They said she was walking down to her basement, but now the boys are saying she was seen walking outside away from her home. Maybe that's what, I don't know. Somebody help me dissect that. I'm at a loss for words. It says nothing pointing to foul play other than her walking outside the house and not being found. So why would her walking outside the house and not being found be pointing to foul play? Because that's how he words it, unless he's just saying it weird. He's known to talk a little funny sometimes. So I wonder if the boys were told the lie about seeing Summer walking away from her home, and if since told the truth about what they really saw. It's just thoughts that crossed my mind, because I wouldn't put it past Don and Candace to do something like that. There was also a key tip from a neighbor in 2021. A woman and her teen children told police they heard a scream about an hour before Summer went missing, which would have been the scream Jody and her two kids heard on their hill on June 15th around 4:30. That would be closer to 2 hours, but whatever. Many people think the scream was Candace finding Summer. I think that's highly likely. And I think something happens to Summer prior to 4 p.m. though. And maybe the police know that too. And that's why they say she was last seen in the early afternoon, and 4:30 to 4:40. That's not the early afternoon. So maybe they know something happened to her prior to that. And that's why they say the scream is unfounded. Who knows? I think Candace had to have been gone for a couple hours and came home and found that Summer was missing or something. There's just too much time missing. There's like 3 hours. Was that the end of it? It says, wish every day that when I heard that scream, I didn't try to dismiss it, the witness said. But the sheriff said after multiple interviews, the tip led nowhere. Okay. I think they might have information to lead them to believe that something happened at a different time, but I don't know. Maybe it's just because of the way that it was talked about. I don't know. One clue police are still looking for is a pickup truck that was seen in the area around the time Summer vanished. The red or maroon pickup truck with ladders on the back, but Lawson admitted he's not even sure it's connected to the case. TBI also made a point to inform the public at Summer's one-year press conference that they were not sure if they were even a witness or to anything. Or if it was even on June 15th. If the red truck was parked right by Don and Candace's or anywhere on Ben Hill or Beech Creek, they say it was at Ben Hill and Beech Creek down there at like the corner of that road. But then it was probably Don using someone's truck from work to come home, or someone from there, giving him a ride. That's my opinion. That's probably why he makes a point to say he had to put his tools in his truck and then he took off for home, because that was part of his plan, to let people see him put his tools away so they knew he was leaving for the day, because they saw that car and they would think for sure that was Don, because they would notice that car, it would stand out. So if he took off in a different vehicle, but they still saw that bright red car there, they would assume Don was still there. You know, Summer's father told NewsNation that he still holds on to hope. He says, I do have hope. I have hope in God. He's in control of all things. And so whatever the outcome is, I have hope in God. And one day, either sooner or later, I will be with my daughter again, Don said. Don, if you think you'll be with Summer in the resurrection, that's you saying that you think she's passed, yet you say you have hope. Is this you just accepting that Summer is passed? Because that's terrifying. How can you be so at peace with that? It's been 2 years, way too long. 700 and some days, way too long. But it's also only been 2 years as far as being at peace with it goes, and accepting that she's likely not with us anymore. It's too soon for that. Way too soon. And it also was too soon the first day. I pray Summer is living and is rescued, and she will be given to a loving family, not given back to Don or Candace. So I think that was, it says, while the sheriff declined an interview, he emailed a response saying he expects to have an update on the case in the near future. So does that mean they have some new information that they are going to release publicly? I doubt it, but maybe. Maybe he's going to clear some people or show us some footage of Summer that we haven't seen before, which I doubt, because they probably would have shown us that by now if they had it. Maybe they're going to announce that they have something and they're leading towards foul play, or that they are leaning towards something now. Poor Summer. I think that's the end of that one. Yeah, that was the end of that. All right. Well, I suppose that was all I had for now. I want to go over in another live, I'll go over all the new news articles, and we can watch all the new news clips and everything and talk about them that have Summer in them, all the new ones. Just because anything that has Summer in it, I'm going to watch it. Even if it's recycled information, I watch it. So especially like, news articles, not everything I see on YouTube, no way, because some of it's just junk in my opinion, but a lot of it's good, and a lot of it I do listen to. But all right, thank you for being here. I really appreciate you guys. I really do. Thanks for being here for Summer. Thank you, mods. You're the best. I know I can't always, because I pre-record, and now that I figured out I can go over an hour, then I can actually go live and just go into StreamYard and play the video that I pre-recorded for you guys as I'm live watching it. But it's just kind of hard to do with Chicken Nugget up and running around, because it's just, it could be crazy up in here sometimes, I'm telling you, in a good way. But you know how it is. Sometimes I just can't always be right there to reply, but most of the time I'm seeing a lot of the comments. It's just that, I can't always reply. I can't always get on there and type, and it's harder to chat on StreamYard, and I am so not used to it, but I'll get there. And I really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much. Thank you for continuing to share Summer's name and picture and her information and any of the facts that we do know. Thank you for being responsible about your speculation and not calling in tips that aren't credible. And if you do have credible tips that will help law in locating Summer, 1-800-TBI find. All right. You guys are awesome. All right. Little Summer. She's so beautiful. Sorry. My computer can be kind of slow. I'm too beautiful to say, Appalachian princess. Say Appalachian princess, but you got run away, Appalachian princess. We will figure out a way to get you out of this mess. Can't shut me up, I will be here fighting. Can't brush me off with thunder and lightning. She goes, we follow, not we want you to stay, Appalachian princess, but you got gone away, Appalachian princess. We will figure out a way to get you out of this mess. They thought they could hide our Appalachian princess, but we're here to find you, Appalachian princess. Can't look away, Appalachian princess. Too beautiful to say, Appalachian princess. Can't shut me up, I will be here fighting. Can't brush me off with thunder and lightning. She goes, we follow, not scared of no hollow. We want you to stay, Appalachian princess, but you got gone away, Appalachian princess. We'll figure out a way to get you out of this mess. They thought they could hide our Appalachian princess, but we're here to find you, Appalachian princess. Hey, I don't know if you guys can hear me. I just wanted to say I love you and I hope you have an awesome day. And thank you, Smiley Stories World and Nature Lover for your cash app. Sorry, chicken nuggets being really loud. I appreciate you guys a lot. Thank you so much. I love you guys. Have a nice day. Pray for Summer Moon Utah Wells.